Everyone thought my husband adored me. He had no concubines, no mistresses, and never frequented brothels. But only I knew that he was in love with the noble consort in the palace. And I was just a tool he had married to divert suspicion, while I was diligently teaching our son to be filial to his grandmother. He, for the sake of that noble consort, committed treason, bringing ruin upon our entire clan. He even plotted to poison the emperor. My lady, it is terrible. The young miss has pushed the young master into the river. A young maid rushed in, her voice frantic. I was dazed for a moment, the confusion in my eyes quickly clearing. Yes, I had been reborn. Reborn before the ruin of my family, a new emperor had ascended the throne, and the former noble consort had become the Empress Dowager. The new emperor's first edict was to exterminate my entire clan. My husband, for the sake of the Empress Dowager and the new emperor's reputation, had taken all the blame upon himself. I had watched as my own son was beaten to death, and even my parents and closest relatives had lost their lives. But my mother-in-law, and even my husband's distant cousin, had been saved by the Empress Dowager. Even my husband had been swapped out of death row by her. Why was it my family who had to die? What did you say, Jean, or fell into the water? I snapped back to reality, my face pale, and shot up to run outside. This had happened in my past life as well. After being pushed into the water by Zhao Shuanger, he had been submerged for a long time, caught a cold, and had a high fever for days. He had been left with a chronic ailment that had weakened him for life. Jinner was my adopted son, the heir of the Liu family, but my mother-in-law would constantly berate us, telling outsiders that I was a jealous woman, unable to bear children, and refusing to let my husband take a concubine, even after adopting a son. But I couldn't very well say that my husband was so in love with the noble consort that he refused to touch me. I could only swallow my bitterness. Because of my weakness, my adopted son was bullied by everyone in the residence. The management of the household was in my mother-in-law's hands. No one listened to me. Whenever I wasn't looking, he would be bullied. And whenever I got angry about it, my mother-in-law would step in and mock me. At this thought, I clenched my fists. In this new life, I would make them all pay. Hongju gather all the maids and servants from my courtyard. Most of them were people I had bought, so they were loyal to me. Since the Liu family was so shameless, they couldn't blame me for turning their world upside down. When I arrived, he was still in the water, struggling to climb out. But she was on the bank, directing the servants to poke him with bamboo poles, pushing him back in whenever he got close. She was laughing hysterically. She was my husband's distant cousin. My mother-in-law, pitying her for having lost her parents, had taken her in. But over time, she had started to act as if she were the young lady of the house, even the mistress. She was arrogant and bossy, but my mother-in-law always protected her. Jinner. My eyes were wide with fury. I pushed aside the servant with the bamboo pole and pulled his small body from the water. He was only 7. How could she? I suppressed the rage in my heart and quickly wrapped my cloak around him. His health was the most important thing right now, Jeaner. Are you all right? Mother, I am fine. His face was pale from the cold, and his body was shivering uncontrollably. My eyes stung, and I almost cried. I held him and gave her a death glare, then turned to leave. But she grabbed me, her eyes rolling in disdain. Song Yunj, who said you could take him, that little bastard dirtied my dress. In the past, whenever he was bullied, I would, to keep the peace, give her expensive things from my own collection. Or a large sum of money. My maternal grandfather, though not a court official, was a successful merchant and had amassed a great fortune, most of which he had given to my mother as her dowry. Mother, in turn, had given most of it to me. I was not short on money. The Liu family's entire monthly income was less than what 2 of my shops earned. Now, she was still trying the same trick. I sneered and kicked her leg. Get lost. From now on, these people would not get a single cent from me, and what they had taken before, I would make them return. Song Yunj, you dare to hit me. You dare to hit me. She stared at me in disbelief, unable to believe that I, who had always been so submissive, had just struck her. Someone, stop them. Her face was twisted with rage. She wanted to have me beaten. Just then, Hongju arrived with my maids and servants. Hongju, throw her in the river. I will take responsibility for whatever happens. Hongju was skilled in martial arts. My mother had specifically chosen her to be my personal maid. Besides me, no one in this residence could command her. Without a moment's hesitation, she grabbed her. She screamed and struggled. Song Yunj, how dare you? My aunt will not let you get away with this. Song Yunj. She was thrown into the river. When she surfaced, Hongju kicked her back down. Her maids tried to save her and were thrown in as well. In my courtyard, Yinju had already prepared ginger tea and warm clothes. Several braziers were burning in the room. After forcing 2 bowls of ginger tea down his throat, he slowly recovered. Yinju also sent for a doctor, but before the doctor arrived, my mother-in-law stormed into my courtyard with a large group of people. Song Yunj, I think you've gone mad. You dare to throw Schwanger into the water. Do you have any respect for me, your mother-in-law? Get out here right now and kneel before her and apologize. She started shouting for me to atone the moment she entered the courtyard. A coldness entered my eyes. I had Yinzu take good care of him and then went out. Hongju was blocking her, preventing her from entering the room. She was so angry she was almost hyperventilating, ordering the servants to seize Hongju. Well, you little slut. So your past obedience was all an act. Now you've finally shown your true colors, daring to have your servant block me. Don't you know your place? Marrying into the Liu family was a blessing of 8 lifetimes for you, and now you dare to bully Schwanger under my nose. Believe it or not, I'll have my son divorce you. She was fuming, her curses unending. I looked at her and said softly, Mother-in-law, you are mistaken. Marrying into the Liu family was the misfortune of 8 lifetimes. With that, I slapped her across the face. My eyes filled with a burning hatred. The force of the blow sent her staggering to the side. Half of her face immediately swelled up. She clutched it, her eyes wide with shock. Not just her, but all the servants in the courtyard were horrified. They couldn't believe I had just hit her. In my past life, my closest relatives had died such a tragic death. But these people, who deserved to die, even a distant cousin, had all survived. Why did my child, my family, and I have to die so miserably? You. Her eyes were wide. She pointed at me, stuttering, but the look in her eyes was venomous. Once she left my courtyard, she would surely not let me off. But I walked up to her again and whispered in her ear, Mother-in-law, you say my husband and that person have a childhood bond. I wonder, if His Majesty knew that he was hiding her personal garments, would the Liu family survive? He was deeply in love with the noble consort and had done many rebellious things for her. Her face changed drastically. She grabbed my arm and hissed, Song Yunj, what nonsense are you spouting? If word of this gets out, you and your child will not live. I laughed out loud, threw her hand off, and went on a mad tirade. If you don't want anyone to know, don't do it. Since none of you want me to live a good life, then let's all die together. With that, I grabbed her collar again. Mother-in-law, what good will it do you to drive me mad? He only married me to hide his own filthy desires. You had best not push me. Otherwise, I don't mind if we all die. I knew she looked down on me, the daughter of a mere county magistrate. But she was also jealous of my large dowry, which was worth more than the entire Liu family's assets. She envied me, yet she despised me, so she constantly tormented me, and the rest of the family followed suit. That life was over. I let go of her collar, and she collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. She thought I had gone mad from today's events, that I had lost my mind. She spat a threat and hurried away with her servants. After venting, I felt a wave of exhaustion and had Hongzhu help me back inside. Hongzhu, go to my mother and ask her to send me some people. People who know martial arts and be quick. These people had no bottom line. I was afraid Hongju couldn't handle them alone. Now he, for the sake of the current noble consort, had done everything he should and shouldn't have. Even the child in her belly was not the current emperor's this thought. I suddenly remembered a crucial matter. The noble consort's pregnancy was unstable. He had been in the palace for the past 2 days, personally attending to everything. Anyon, who didn't know, would think he was acting on the emperor's orders, but it was all for his own selfish reasons, and her so-called unstable pregnancy was also a cover, to hide the fact that she was not 3 months pregnant, as she claimed, but 4. I didn't care if he came back. I ordered my people to guard my courtyard and to treat anyone who came as a stray cat or dog. My lady, the managers of the Shayun Pavilion and the Shanwei restaurant have sent someone, saying that the family's bill for last month was due yesterday. I wonder. A young servant came in to report. I sneered. Since it is a family expense, why come to me? The management of the household is not in my hands. Tell them to go to the old madam. The clothes from the Shayun Pavilion were the finest and most fashionable in the capital, and of course the prices were not cheap. Since I had arrived, the masters of the house had been ordering 2 new outfits there every month. That alone was 2,000 taels a month. And then there was the Xianwei restaurant, where the food was exquisite and the clientele were all high-ranking officials. The prices were equally steep. Everyone in the Liu family ate there often, especially her. Just for treating her friends, she would spend over 1,000 taels a month. They say you don't bite the hand that feeds you, but this family was full of parasites. The young servant was about to leave when Yinju slipped a silver ingot into his hand. My lady is not angry with you. Though she is the mistress of the house, she has no power. Now that her dowry is almost gone, the servant's eyes darted around. He quickly pocketed the silver and left. I then ordered my people to uproot all the rare and precious flowers that had been transplanted into the residence. If they could be sold, sell them at a low price. If not, throw them out. Don't let this family have them. I had stopped all purchases for the residence. For the past 2 days, my mother-in-law had not had her premium bird's nest soup, nor her favorite premium yellow croaker. Now that I had refused to pay for the restaurants and had even uprooted the flowers, she was finally anxious. She stormed into my courtyard with a large group of servants, her face full of resentment. Song Yunj, what do you think you are doing? Beside her was a resentful-looking Zhao Shuanger. She was just a cousin, but my mother-in-law had, as a matter of course, put all of her expenses on me, using my money, eating and dressing well, and then constantly belittling and bullying me. Did she really think I had no temper? I glanced at them, a sarcastic look in my eyes. I don't know what you are talking about, mother-in-law. Yushi was red-faced with anger and wanted to slap me. She was angry, and her cousin was even angrier, her face twisted. Song Yunj, don't play dumb, I am asking you. Why did you stop the household purchases? And why didn't you pay the restaurants? Do you know how much face you've made me lose? She was so angry she was practically jumping. She had finally made friends with the daughter of the left vice minister and had planned to treat her to a meal at the Xianwei restaurant today. But I hadn't paid, and she had been mocked by everyone. But I just nonchalantly took out an account book. Since I married into the Liu family, the management of the household has been in your hands. Mother-in-law, I haven't used a single cent of the Liu family's money. On the contrary, how much of my dowry has the Liu family used over the years? Your expenses. Why should I pay for them with my dowry? In any respectable family, for the husband's family to use the wife's dowry was a cause for ridicule. If they took it by force, the wife could even go to the authorities with her dowry list and demand its return. They weren't ignorant. They had just been playing dumb now that I had said it so plainly. Their faces all turned ugly. Me mother-in-law's face turned completely cold. Song Yunj, if you go and pay the bills today, I will let this go, and everything will be as it was. But if you refuse, don't blame me for using the family rules. I raised an eyebrow. Did she really think I was still the same weak and timid person? When I didn't move, she snorted coldly. Men, take her to the ancestral hall and make her kneel. She is not to be released without my permission. I had knelt in that ancestral hall many times. Both he and I had knelt there, in thin clothes in the dead of winter, and had always gotten sick. The servants were about to grab me when Hongju kicked one of them. At the same time, 6 new faces emerged from the side room. These were the people my mother had sent. Not only were they skilled in martial arts, but one of them was also a master of medicine. I was just about to go and find you. All the money you've used, all the jewelry, ornaments, and fabrics you've taken from my private collection. You have 3 days to return everything. Otherwise, I don't mind taking this account book to the authorities. At that time, let the whole capital see what a filthy family the Liu family is, to even steal a daughter-in-law's dowry. I threw the copied account book at them. My mother-in-law was so angry she couldn't catch her breath and fainted. Her cousin was about to curse me when Hongju slapped her and forced her to her knees. Since the young miss is so ill-mannered, she will be taken to the ancestral hall to kneel. Song Yunj. How dare you? When my cousin gets back, I am not done with you. You venomous woman, woo-woo. Hongju quickly stuffed a rag in her mouth. The stench made her eyes water, watching them being taken away. I felt a sense of satisfaction. To hell with being a virtuous wife, to hell with rules and reputation. My maternal grandfather, a lifelong merchant, had once befriended a renowned physician. I had him invite the doctor to our home. Under his care, his cold gradually improved, and on good days, he could even get out of bed for a walk. Me courtyard was peaceful, but the rumors about the Liu family outside were spreading like wildfire. The capital was abuzz with talk of how the Liu family were all freeloaders. When Lady Liu had married into the family, her 10-mile-long dowry had been the envy of all. And now, in just a few years, it was all gone. Even worse, the old Madame Liu controlled the household finances, but gave her daughter-in-law nothing, instead giving the power to some irrelevant cousin. The rumors grew, and soon people were whispering about an affair between him and this cousin. Scandals in high society were always popular, and the stories were told with great detail. And that was exactly what I needed. With the rumors swirling outside, my mother-in-law, afraid I would really go to the authorities, reluctantly returned various precious jewelry and ornaments. But there was still a shortfall of 30,000 taels. He was supposed to be in the palace for another 2 days, but rushed back after receiving a letter from her. The moment he returned, she immediately went to him to complain. When he heard that all this trouble was my doing, his face darkened. He had only married me to divert suspicion, not to cause trouble. As he entered the courtyard, he saw a swing set had been put up, and he was laughing happily. The sight was jarring, and the coldness in his eyes deepened. What are you doing? So young and already so frivolous. Is this how your mother has been teaching you? At his scolding, he immediately became timid and carefully got off the swing, standing by, waiting to be reprimanded. Hongju couldn't stand it and bowed to him. Master. The young master fell into the water and was sick. He has just recovered. Shut up. This is not your place to speak. Are there no rules in this residence? I was in my room and heard him scolding him without any reason, and then berating my servants, showing me no respect. A fire of anger ignited in me. If you don't know how to speak, then shut up. I strode out and threw the cup in my hand at him. It hit his shoulder, and the dirty water stained half of his clothes. He grunted in pain and looked up at me in disbelief. But I was not satisfied. I snatched a broom from a cleaning maid and started hitting him with it. The father is to blame for the son's misdeeds. You have not taught him a single day. What right do you have to scold him without asking any questions? Who do you think you are? I'll kill you today. The broom left red marks on his pale face. Hongju and Yinju pretended to stop me, their words all of persuasion, but they kept pushing him toward me. Song Yunj, are you mad? He roared as he dodged. I hit him even harder. Yes, I am mad. I've been driven mad by you Liu family parasites. I am telling you, Liu Yanji, if you don't let me live in peace, then no one will. I attacked him like a madwoman, leaving him covered in bloody marks. When my mother-in-law and the others arrived, they saw him, a complete mess, his clothes torn. "Stop, you madwoman, stop." She quickly had the servants restrain me. I stopped and threw down the broom, sitting on a stone bench panting. He finally caught his breath, his eyes cold as he stared at me. "Sung Yunj, I will divorce you. Divorce me." "Ha! If you have the guts, write the divorce papers now." He was just bluffing. He still wanted to use me as his shield. Besides, I knew his secret. He would never let me go. That is why I had to find another way to divorce him. If I were the one to propose it, he would never agree. He, of course, knew that he was just bluffing and impatiently flicked his sleeve. "You all go out. I need to talk to her." The others, who had been hoping for a good show, reluctantly left. The servants were also dismissed. When he saw I had calmed down a bit, he started to scold me. "Sung Yunj, I told you before, I don't love you. We can just live together as respectful strangers." "You agreed. Why are you causing such a scene now, just to get me to come back?" At his words, I burst out laughing, and then tears streamed down my face. He was the one who had wanted to marry me, the talented and handsome young man of the capital who had fallen for me at first sight. He had even declared that besides me, there would be no other women in his life. But on our wedding night, he had shattered all my illusions, telling me he didn't love me, that marrying me was not his choice, and that I should just be a proper Mrs. Liu. If not for my discovery of his love for the noble consort, I might have lived my life in fear of his cold words. It was only after I had confronted him with this truth that he had finally been forced to be honest with me. I wiped my tears, suppressed the hatred in my eyes, and looked him in the eye. "Liu Yanji, am I the one making a scene, or are you the one who has no sense of responsibility as a man? Since I married into the Liu family, I have no way out. My mother-in-law insults me, calls me a hen that can't lay eggs. She knows how you feel but deliberately takes it out on me. I was prepared to live a quiet life with Jinner, but Liu Anan repeatedly bullies him. A few days ago, she even pushed him into the river. Is this what you call respectful strangers? I want to live a quiet life, but your mother and your distant cousin are constantly bullying me, treating me as if I am dead." I vented all the humiliation I had suffered in my past life, the hatred in my eyes returning, wishing I could kill this beast of a man with my own hands. He hung his head and said nothing. He knew all of this, but to him, as long as it didn't involve his mother or the noble consort, it was all irrelevant. I didn't expect him to reflect on anything. I took a deep breath and swallowed the lump in my throat. "Liu Yanji, from now on, I will not bother you, and I hope you can do the same. Make your mother and the others stop bothering me. And that 30,000 taels, I want to see it by tomorrow." I knew this was not the time to completely break with him, so I could only use the money as a leverage. As I was leaving, he hesitated, then let out a long sigh, a hint of blame in his eyes. He not only didn't recognize his own mistakes but also blamed me for making a scene. "Yunj, I have wronged you, but Schwanger is still young. She meant no harm. Don't be so calculative. As for your dowry, I will find a way." At his words, the hatred in my heart almost boiled over again. All my suffering in his eyes was just me being too calculative. How could he say such shameless things with such a calm face? I closed my eyes and slammed the door. I was afraid that if I stayed a moment longer, I would strangle him. The noble consort was frightened during a hunt and had an unstable pregnancy. He was urgently summoned to the palace. Besides her, the third and fourth princes were also injured. The fourth prince had broken his leg. The bone was visible, and it was unlikely to heal properly. Even if it did, there would be lasting effects. The third prince had been shot in the shoulder with an arrow and was in a coma. Hearing that the third prince was seriously injured, the noble consort had a miscarriage scare. The emperor was furious and ordered an investigation. I, of course, knew how things would play out. This had happened in my past life as well. In that life, the second prince was found to be responsible. He was a favorite of the emperor, but his maternal family was weak. The third and fourth princes were rising stars, so he had resorted to this desperate measure, this life. As in the last, all the evidence pointed to the second prince. The emperor was enraged. He had personally raised the second prince, and he never thought he would have such ambitions. The second prince was stripped of his title and confined to his residence for life. He stayed in the palace for half a month, finally stabilizing the noble consort's pregnancy. But it was only barely stable. If she were to be agitated again, she might have a premature birth. The emperor, pitying her, showered her with gifts. The next month, the Minister of War's grandson had his 100-day celebration. The Minister of War was Consort Xian's family. I heard that the fourth prince's injuries had not yet healed. To pray for him, the Chu family, under the pretext of the celebration, held a large banquet for the common people of the capital. I went with Hongzhu and Yinzhu, among the wives of high-ranking officials. My status was low, and since he was a trusted confidant of the noble consort, I was considered to be in her faction. As his wife, I was naturally not saying that his deep love for me was just a front, and that he was having an affair with his cousin. I said nothing, just sat in the corner, my eyes reddening, as if to confirm the rumors. Gradually they grew bored and even started to pity me. They soon changed the subject. Halfway through the banquet, I finally found an opportunity to meet with Mrs. Chu in the garden. The Mid-Autumn Festival was approaching. With my constant secret instigation, her cousin finally became anxious. She begged my mother-in-law to take her to the palace banquet. He, not wanting to go against his mother, had me bring her along. A banquet, the noble consort, as the emperor's favorite, and pregnant, with an imperial air, was given the honor of sitting beside him. Consort Xian sat below. She saw me from a distance, and a faint smile touched her lips, a meaningful look in her eyes. I knew then that the plan could proceed. Publicly, she was 7.5 months pregnant, but in reality, it was 8.5. After the banquet tonight, her faction would surely make a move. Otherwise, once the child was born, it would be too late. Halfway through the banquet, a strange young palace maid secretly slipped her a note. She looked at the note and then at his seat, but he wasn't there. A look of glee appeared in her eyes. She told me she was going to the restroom and left the hall alone. I smiled to myself. Now, it was time for the show to begin. A short while later, a maid from Consort, Xian's retinue, rushed in and whispered in her ear. She frowned and had someone deliver a message to the emperor. The emperor's face immediately fell. He stood up and walked out. She raised an eyebrow and followed. The others were confused but did not dare to follow. The noble consort wanted to go as well but was stopped by the head eunuch. "Your Highness, the emperor has specifically instructed that your pregnancy is the top priority." Even though she was curious, she could not go. She could only send her head maid to follow. If she were not so cautious, she would not have reached her current position. I was frustrated that I couldn't witness the downfall of those two. But then Consort Xian sent someone to summon me. In a side hall, they were kneeling on the floor, their clothes disheveled, clearly having been caught in an inappropriate act. The emperor's face was dark, the atmosphere in the room suffocating. She had tried to say that someone had impersonated him and had sent her a message to meet here, but the note was gone. Her only other option was to say that I had drugged her, but a young eunuch had seen her come here on her own. This was my first time in the palace. I had no ability to do such a thing, and there was no trace of drugs in her wine. Without me saying a word, no one suspected me. Or rather, I had no ability to do it. Consort Xian turned to him. "And what does Physician Liu have to say?" He pressed his lips together and said nothing. What could he say? That a young palace maid from the noble consort's retinue had given him a message, saying the noble consort wanted to see him in private. At this thought, he pressed his forehead to the ground and kowtowed. "Your Majesty, Consort Xian, please forgive me. I have long admired my cousin. I was drunk today, and, in a moment of passion, committed this heinous crime." He took all the blame. As if I had been struck by a great blow, I looked up at him in shock. "Liu Yanji, I thought those rumors were false. If you loved your cousin, Why did you marry me? Why? I was in agony, and I collapsed to the floor, all decorum gone. Then I suppressed my tears and knelt before the emperor. Your Majesty, I only ask that you grant us a divorce so that we may go our separate ways, and I wish Physician Liu and his cousin a long and happy life together. My eyes were red and swollen from crying. Consort Shan also fanned the flames. In the end, the emperor waved his hand and granted our divorce. He and she, for their disrespect to the imperial family, were each given 30 strokes of the cane. When I returned to the residence, I immediately had all my things packed, and without looking back, moved with him and my servants to a courtyard I owned. A few days later, I heard that Consort Xian had frightened the noble consort, causing her to have a premature birth. But then news came that the Prince of Amping had died after falling from his horse. Consort Xian, who had caused the premature birth, was fine, but the noble consort had somehow angered the emperor and was sent to the cold palace. Her child was stillborn. The Liu family was also implicated. He was found to have plotted against the emperor, having been persuaded by his beloved noble consort to give the emperor a slow-acting poison. In the end, the old Madame Liu and the newly married Zhao Shuanger were all beheaded. The emperor's health declined day by day. The third prince, having fallen out of favor, rebelled. He was killed by the fourth prince's men as he tried to storm the palace. The fourth prince, who had been unable to walk since the hunt, had been underestimated by the third prince. It turned out that his injuries had long since healed, and his legs showed no sign of injury. In the end, he had been played. The emperor passed away, and a new emperor ascended the throne, declaring a general amnesty. I was also ennobled as a county mistress, given a residence, and summoned by the Empress Dowager. In her palace, the former consort Shen, now the Empress Dowager, personally helped me up. Yunj, there is no need to be so formal. Before, I had used Mrs. Chu to get close to her. I had used the excuse of finding a secret in his study to tell her some of his and the noble consort's secrets, asking only for a divorce, to no longer be implicated by the Liu family. Her methods were also brilliant. I had only told her a few details, and she had uncovered many secrets. She found out that the assassination of the third and fourth princes during the hunt was all her doing. The third prince's injury was just to avoid suspicion. The fourth prince's leg had not healed because of her and his meddling. They had immediately started to fight back. After helping me with my divorce, she must have investigated. She had wanted to strike first, but she was about to give birth. She had tried to frame her, but she had fallen right into her trap. When the emperor found out that the noble consort had not had a premature birth, but a full-term one, he knew the child was not his. The father was the Prince of Amping. In his rage, the prince was killed. If she could have an affair with him, who could guarantee that the third prince was the emperor's? And so, the third prince was eliminated from the succession. He never thought he would rebel, giving the fourth prince the perfect opportunity. As for the emperor's death, she had most likely had a hand in it as well. After all, with the third prince gone, there was still the wronged second prince. Who could guarantee that the emperor wouldn't favor him? So she had acted decisively. He and the noble consort had prepared everything: the infertility potion, the slow-acting poison. How could she not use it? I chatted with the Empress Dowager for a long time. She was very happy and rewarded me with a lot of gold and silver after that. I moved to the south, away from the turmoil of the capital. With money, a child, and a title, life was good.